We are live. Hey, how is it going? Lee Hayward here with the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday, November the 5th. And today, as always, the way these chats work is I'm going to be hanging out here for the next little while, answering any questions that you may have with regards to fitness, nutrition, any specific help that you need when it comes to building muscle, losing fat, or getting in your best shape. So if you have any questions or topics of discussion, feel free to type those into our chat window, and I'll do the best I can to help you out over the course of today. Now, I'm a little late starting off with the chat here this evening. Normally I do launch these a bit earlier, but this past week has been a crazy busy week for me. And if you've been following along over on Facebook, you know, we were doing the Lose Your Gut Challenge group. And this is something that I do a few times a year usually. So I've launched a Lose Your Gut Challenge Fall 2021 edition. And man, we just clued it up today. The official 5-day challenge went through. We had the graduation workshop last night, and man, what a whole experience it's been. Like, a lot of people have made some strides over the past week, you know, in terms of getting the tools, tactics, and strategies that they need. And if you're not familiar with the whole Lose Your Gut Challenge and what it is, it's a 5-day virtual coaching program that I host through a private Facebook group where we go deep into the mindsets and the strategies and the psychology of creating a lasting and sustainable fitness and fat loss transformation. And this is something that I've done, and I really enjoy the whole process because it gives me the opportunity to really go deep. And it's basically 5 days of intensive coaching, live video workshops, bonus trainings, bonus nutrition guides. I mean, there's a lot of detail and in depth. And if you haven't participated in it, or if you weren't part of the challenge, I'm telling you, you missed out. All right. So it's something that I'm very passionate about. And a lot of people went through it, and we started off with almost 200 people in the challenge. And by the end of the week, we were down to, I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head now. I have to go check, but last I checked, it was around 150. So, I mean, the way it works is if you don't complete the challenge, you don't keep up with the accountability tasks as we're going through the challenge, you get kicked out of the challenge. So, I mean, not everybody could keep up with it. And that's the whole idea of it. It's an interactive participation challenge. And that was a fun part of it. And that this is done to help people to actually make some progress and not just passively sit and learn and lurk in the shadows, but you actually have to actively participate to stay in the challenge. So, I mean, it was a great group. And man, I've been flat out all week, right? Literally running that challenge. So, I mean, it's a lot of work on my part, but it's something that it's a passion project, something that I thoroughly enjoy. And I know it's going to have a big impact. And most of my coaching students, people who've gone through, you know, the Lose Your Gut Challenge, have since went on to make some amazing before and after transformations. And prime example, this past year, right, I ran this challenge exactly 1 year ago. And one of those challenge participants, Steve Patterson, participated. And since then, he's lost 101 pounds in just under a year. So October 2020 to October 2021, he literally lost 101 pounds. He started off at 260.7 pounds. And 1 year later, 159.9 pounds. So literally lost just over 100 pounds going through the Lose Your Gut Challenge process, and by applying the tactics and strategies and mindset and lifestyle habits that he learned during that challenge. So, I mean, that just shows you the power. And I mean, it's something that I'm excited for, and I'm looking forward to seeing who the next before and after transformations are going to be. So if you haven't participated in a Lose Your Gut Challenge, I'm telling you, you're missing out. So head on over to the Facebook page, you know, like the Facebook page, friend me up over there, and you can get more details when I do another live Lose Your Gut Challenge coaching program. So I just wanted to share that with you, because that's where I've been. And that's the reason why I'm a bit late launching this one, because I was literally doing some coaching calls with people from the Lose Your Gut Challenge group right before I got on this live video here today. So who do we got joining in? I see Dan is joining us. Tommy is joining us. We've got John. We've got Jerry. We've got Motaz joining in. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And also let me know if you have any questions or topics of discussion. Feel free to type those into our chat window there. And just a heads up, when it comes to this, if you have a legitimate fitness and nutrition question, feel free to post it in there, right? Like I'll do my best to help you out in any way that I can. And if for some reason I can't help you, then I won't BS you, but I'll try and point you in the right direction to somebody who can help you. And with these video chats, like if you have a question, feel free to ask it, right? I mean, I say there's no such thing as a stupid question, but I sometimes regret saying that because then people literally post in stupid questions just to kind of get me going. But if you have a legitimate fitness and nutrition question, feel free to type it into the chat window there, and I'll do the best that I can to help you. All right, so let's see what we got going on here. John is asking, he says, can weight on the scale drop but not your waist? Yeah, you can drop weight on the scale and your weight is going to always fluctuate. Like this is normal. Just to kind of put some perspective out there, with your body weight, you're typically going to be your lightest first thing in the morning after an overnight fast and before you eat or drink anything. That's generally when most people are going to be at their lightest. And then after all day of eating and drinking fluids and everything else, you're going to be your heaviest in the evening. And depending on your body size, that could fluctuate 5 pounds or more over the course of the day. It's quite common. In my case, I easily gain 5 pounds of weight from first thing in the morning to last thing before I go to bed, just from food and water weight alone. Now, I mean, that may vary depending on how active you are, how much you sweat, or stress levels, and all this kind of stuff can have an impact. Your quality of sleep can have an impact. Like if you have a really good deep sleep, that actually helps with weight loss. And if you don't sleep well, that can hinder it. So your body weight is always going to fluctuate. So, I mean, you can drop weight or gain weight over the course of the day, and that's not always going to have an impact on your waistline measurement. Now, if you're losing weight over the long term, not just day-to-day fluctuations, but you're actually dropping weight, but your waist isn't coming down, that's not a good sign. That's a sign that you're probably losing muscle, because most guys, we store the fat right around our midsection, right? That's the stubborn area. So if you are losing weight and you're consciously on a fat burning program trying to get leaner, if your waist isn't coming down, but the scale is, I'd be a bit concerned. I would reevaluate the process that you're following and to see if it can be improved, because that's not a good sign if your weight is dropping, but you're not seeing improvements in your waistline, because it should be a corresponding, meaning as the pounds drop, you should start to see some improvements in your waistline measurement. But you want to give it some time. Like if it's just you've seen a quick fluctuation in weight, but your waist hasn't changed and it's only been like a week or two, like don't be alarmed by short-term fluctuations. But if this is something that's been going on for weeks or months and the weight is continuing to drop and the waist isn't, that's not necessarily a good sign. What else we got there? Jerry is joining in saying, can you do bulking or gaining? Okay. Oh, so, okay. This is going along with the lose your gut challenge. He says, can you do a bulking or gaining challenge? Technically I could, but that's not my main priority at this phase. And honestly, I'm not a huge fan of bulking. I'm not. And if I could go back in time and change one thing about what I did in the past when I was younger and up and coming bodybuilder, I would have not bulked to begin with. I would have not have purposely tried to bulk up. And the reason for that is bulking for most people is just an excuse to get fat. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And it was for me, right? Back when I was bulking, I would pile on weight and it wasn't good quality weight. I'm much more of a fan of focusing on a body recomposition, making lean gains while losing body fat. And that's what we cover in the Lose Your Gut Challenge. And one of the things that we go into detail with the whole Lose Your Gut Challenge program is it's not just for people who want to lose massive amounts of weight. Like some people in the program do. Like prime example, Steve Patterson lost 100 pounds over the last year, which is phenomenal. But some people, they don't necessarily want to lose weight. They just want to improve their body composition. So maybe they want to stay close to the same weight, but they want to lose the belly fat and fill out their frame with lean muscle at the same time. So achieve a body recomposition. And the same principles apply in both cases, right? Regardless if it's a big weight loss or just a body recomposition, as far as habits, lifestyle, nutrition choices, the type of training you have to do, it's going to be the same. I mean, of course, you'll manipulate the variables in terms of like the actual caloric and macro intake based on your body size and all that. But that's going to vary depending on the individual anyway. Like if someone's starting off at 300 pounds and someone else is starting off at 200 pounds, obviously they're going to have their own customized meal plan with their own calories and macros and everything else that they need for their specific body type. But the habits, the core foundation, and the lifestyle that needs to be implemented is the same in both cases. And this whole idea of trying to bulk up, purposely put on weight, most times it backfires. Unless you're in some sort of sport or activity where you physically need to gain weight. Like if you're planning on taking up sumo wrestling and you want to bulk up, okay, that's a bit different, right? Or if you're doing some sort of like, you see strongman competitors who just want to get big and strong at all costs. Like they don't care if they gain fat along with the muscle. They just want to be as big as possible because a bigger physique is a stronger physique, right? Even if they're carrying extra fat and their gut sticks out further than their chest, it still helps to add to their overall strength and power. Like you look at like the world's strongest man competitors or any world record, power lifter, for the most part, of course there's exceptions to all rules, but generally speaking, the strongest guys in the world are not the leanest, right? They're not the skinniest and the leanest. They're usually big and stocky and they're kind of like built like a grizzly bear, right? So, I mean, if that's your goal, just to pack on size at all costs, well, that's a different, that's not something that I prioritize. And if you want help with that, hey, I can refer you to some strength and conditioning coaches who do focus on power training, but that's not my area of speciality. I'm focusing more on guys who want to focus on health, fitness, achieving a lean, healthy body type, and maintaining it. That's what we're all about here. So it's a different priority. That's why I focus on the lose your gut challenge and not a bulking challenge. What else have we got here? Motaz is saying YouTube needs to fix their algorithm. You deserve more views, man. You are barely getting 1,000 views in your videos. You deserve better and you work really hard. It's sad. I appreciate the feedback. Thank you for that. And YouTube we've gone through the whole rigmarole with YouTube. I mean, I continue to pump out my content and those who tune into these videos, I'm doing it for you. And honestly, I don't mind that it's a smaller group. It really doesn't. I mean, it'd be cool to be reaching a gazillion people and all that. And back in the day when I started, my videos did get a lot. Like I had a lot of early videos that had over 1 million views, right? Some of them multiple millions of views. But now that there's just so many people on YouTube these days, it's kind of gotten crazy. And honestly, I'm not pumping out videos every single day. And that's what most of the big channels are doing, right? They're pumping out daily videos and getting into a lot of the drama. And that's something I really couldn't give a shit about. Like making videos about other people's videos. I honestly, I couldn't care less about doing that. I mean, I know I would get more views if I started making videos talking about other people's videos and ranting and trying to create all this drama and, all the crap that goes on. Like most fitness channels on YouTube, like half the stuff they pump out isn't even fitness related content. It's just bitching and complaining about other fitness channels. And then they get into pissing matches and debates and saying, oh, this guy sucks and this guy is cool and this guy, whatever. Like they're just talking about each other in a big old gossip fest. Now I know that gets a ton of views and, more power to them. I tip my hat to them. I know what they're doing. They're playing the YouTube algorithm and making it work and getting a shit ton of views, but I'm here to actually help people. And if I have a small group of followers who actually want my help and appreciate it, then that's what I'm here for, right? I'm not going to deviate from my plan just to try and get more YouTube views. I would rather have a small channel that I feel comfortable with and that I'm authentic with versus trying to just have a big channel where I'm more spews for more views, if you will. That's not what it's about for me. But I appreciate the feedback. Thank you much. I'm glad you appreciate it. Would you do another collaboration with Elliott Hulse? I probably would. If I was in Florida, I may. I mean, I did a collaboration with him back, oh my gosh, it was a few years ago now, well before the whole coronavirus thing hit. But I haven't traveled literally since coronavirus hit. So, I mean, I have no intentions of traveling anytime soon. I mean, but if I do, I mean, yeah, I'll do more collaborations. But right now, that's not in the near future. What else we got there? We have Kane joining in. He says, eating no protein powder and not eating breakfast, just having a coffee first thing in the morning, then 30 minutes before the gym, creatine, and my strength is great. Okay, I'm not sure if that's a comment or a question or what, but if it's working for you, you're enjoying it, then hey, by all means, do it, right? Like there's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's more than one way to skin the fat off your frame. So if what you're doing is working, you're seeing gains, you're seeing progress, then who am I to argue? If it's working for you, go for it. And as far as the whole idea of fasted workouts, I've done fasted workouts in the past, and I have experienced progress with them. I mean, it has worked. But I find like as your body changes and as your priorities change, so does your approach. And one thing you'll notice, especially for people who are primarily focused on athletic performance versus just fat loss, is your fueling strategies for your workouts have to change. And this is something that I've noticed, especially as I've gotten more into focusing on my athletic performance. Like over the past few years, if you've been following along with me, especially over on Facebook, you know, I've really gotten into cycling. That's one of my passions right now. I mean, like this past year, I competed in our provincial road cycling championships. I also competed in our provincial bodybuilding championships. So, I mean, two totally different sport disciplines and two totally different training and nutrition approaches required. So earlier in the summer, I did the provincial bodybuilding championships, made my comeback in the Masters over 40 division. And then later in the summer, I did the provincial road cycling championships. And the type of eating and training that you have to do for performance is totally different than what you have to do for fat loss. So it's not that one is right or wrong. It's just what's your priority? What is it that you want to focus on? And if it's fat loss, then there is a time and a place for fasted workouts, fasted cardio. I mean, it is an advanced strategy that you can certainly implement, because doing exercise in a fasted state does help to utilize the fatty acids that are in your bloodstream. It can be like a little edge, a little trick, if you will, to help optimize fat burning in the moment. But your strength and energy generally suffers, especially if you're really pushing it. And if you're doing extensive workouts, like training that extends beyond an hour, like if you're only training for an hour, you'll got enough glycogen in your system to run through an hour workout. But if you get into prolonged sessions, 2 hours, 3 hours or longer, like in the case of cycling, for example, I mean, some of those workouts can last multiple hours. You can't do them fasted. You will burn through your glycogen reserves and you will bonk, and you'll literally be running on empty. And that's where pre-workout and intra-workout fueling really comes into play. So it's a different strategy for sure. But, bottom line, Kane, if what you're doing is working for you and you're enjoying it and you're seeing results, keep doing it, right? Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But be aware of it. Listen to your body, pay attention to it. And if you do find that you hit a plateau and you need to change your approach, which will eventually happen, every approach, every diet, every workout, every strategy that you use, it's going to run its course sooner or later. And that's just inevitable. Like nobody's going to stick to a certain program and just make nonstop gains for the rest of their life or nonstop progress. Eventually your body's going to adapt and plateau to it. And this applies to nutrition. It applies to workouts. Like you start a new plan and your body has to adapt to it. And in the process of adapting, you're going to grow. You're going to get the response, whether that's, response in terms of fat loss or response in terms of muscle gain. But you adapt, you get the response, and then eventually you plateau, right? So I always say adapt, grow, plateau. And once you hit the plateau phase, that's your cue, then something needs to change versus continuing to beat your head against the wall, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Like once your body hits a plateau and you're certain, like I'm doing this, I'm not getting the results. Like don't continue to beat a dead horse. Don't continue to do the same thing over and over again and hope that it's somehow magically going to change this time. If you've been doing the same program and it's not working, then you need to change something, whether that's, getting some outside help from someone who's got the experience, or it's doing your own research to figure out what you need to do. But bottom line, you need to change it once it stops working. But in the meantime, keep doing it. What else we got there? John is saying, I think it was wine. Expanded my stomach, even though I count calories in wine. All right, so John had the question there saying his weight's going down, but his belly is not, and he's drinking wine. I'm going to share something with you, and this might be a bit of a shock for some people. Alcohol has a very negative impact on fat burning, and it's not just the calories. It's more than calories in versus calories out. When you consume alcohol, and when I say alcohol, all alcohol is equal, whether it's beer, wine, liquor, whatever, it doesn't matter. Alcohol is alcohol. When there is alcohol in your system, it literally shuts down your body's ability to burn fat. And it's not going to metabolize stored body fat. You're not even going to properly burn the food you eat. Everything gets put into storage mode when you have alcohol in your system. And the reason for that is because alcohol takes priority. That has to get metabolized to zero blood alcohol before you will metabolize body fat, before you'll metabolize the food you eat. That has to be processed first. Alcohol, it takes priority. That's why you get intoxicated. When there's alcohol in your system, everything else gets put on the back burner. That alcohol takes priority till it gets metabolized. So for people who drink on a regular basis, like say you have a glass of wine with dinner, or maybe you have a couple beers after work, or whatever your drink of choice is, if you're drinking on a regular basis, you're literally suppressing fat burning on a regular basis. And this can really hinder your fat burning. And you know, I've seen it before where people, they could be eating healthy, they could be exercising regularly, but if they're drinking regularly, that's going to be an anchor that's going to hold you back. That's going to prevent you from maximizing your fat loss results. And this is why when you see like athletes, competitive bodybuilders, fitness competitors, whatever, when they're going through a serious fat loss program, what's one of the things they eliminate? They eliminate the alcohol from their program, or at least they drastically reduce it so that they can maximize fat burning. Because if that's part of your plan, you're hindering yourself. And then to go along with that, when most people drink, they tend not to make the best food choices, right? Like how often have you seen, you know, a bunch of buddies like on a Friday night say, hey, let's go out for a few beers. And then after a few beers, they say, well, let's go for a nice fresh garden salad afterwards. Like, no, it ain't going to happen. Nobody's going to go out drinking, get shit-faced drunk, and then say, hey, I want to have, you know, a spinach salad with a grilled chicken breast. No, it's going to be like, I want pizza. I want McDonald's. I want, you know, drive-through pub grub, something, right? I want some fatty, greasy, you know, stuff. They don't want healthy food. So you get that negative synergistic effect. The alcohol hinders fat burning. And then, of course, it hinders your judgment as well, and you're more likely to make poor food choices. Is it any wonder why people get a beer belly, right? So, I mean, if you're struggling with fat loss and you're drinking, then that could be part of the problem. Moving on. What else we got there? AT is joining in. Lee, I know it doesn't matter when to take creatine, but to me, the only results I see is when I take it pre-workout. Any explanation? Have you tried taking it other times? Because like creatine is not it's not a substance that has a timing, meaning like it's just like taking your vitamins or anything like that. It's like as long as you have adequate stores in your system, it's going to work. And honestly, it's not like caffeine, for example, where like it's going to kick in and you'll feel the stimulant effect. Like creatine is not a stimulant. It's not something that you know, it's in your system and then it stops working after an hour or two or something like that, or it has a peak. As long as you have adequate stores in your system, it doesn't matter. So, I mean, if it might be the placebo effect, like you're taking your creatine and you're thinking, okay, I have creatine, I'm loaded up, I'm ready for my workout. Chances are, if you're feeling that you're getting the benefits from creatine, it could be that. Or another thing is, what kind of creatine are you taking? Because if your creatine is part of like some pre-workout mix that has caffeine or other stimulants in it, then it might not be the creatine that you're feeling. It could be the whatever else is in the concoction. Because a lot of pre-workouts these days have creatine mixed in there. So you're getting caffeine and you're getting other, you know, stimulants like taurine or beta-alanine or whatever, other things that could have an impact, and then has the creatine mixed in there as well. So you say, I'm taking creatine, but in reality, you're taking a whole bunch of stuff. So you're taking actual whole pre-workout concoction, and that could be giving you the boost that you're feeling during the workouts. But as far as the actual creatine itself, it's not going to matter if you take it pre-workout, post-workout, on your non-workout days. Like as long as you take it consistently, you're going to have the results. Like it's going to keep your creatine levels in your body topped up, and you'll reap the benefits of it. So that's what I would say is the issue. It's either one, it's a placebo effect where you just think because you're taking creatine, you're getting, you know, the benefits, or it's actually you're taking more than just creatine. It's a whole pre-workout concoction that contains creatine. One or the other. That's my guess. We got YT. We got AT, we got a YT. What are the benefits of the deadlift? Is it worth doing as you get older? A lot of people say you should not be squatting the weight up, but Olympic lifters lift like this in a clean style. Is it wrong? It depends what you're trying to achieve, right? Like first off, there's multiple variations of a deadlift. You have the typical conventional deadlift. You have a sumo deadlift. You have a stiff leg deadlift. You have a Romanian style deadlift. And then there's all kinds of variations of those, right? You can be doing a barbell deadlift, a power rack lockout deadlift, whatever, right? There's all kinds of different variations. The big thing you need to think of is, what are you doing it for? Like, what is your end goal with this? Like, are you trying to be an Olympic lifter? If so, then you want to go get some Olympic lifting coaching and follow that. If your goal is just to improve your overall health and fitness, build muscle, lose the gut, get in shape, which is, that's who I focus on. Like, I'm not really targeting my coaching towards sport-specific athletes. Like, if you're an Olympic lifter, you're not following Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding. If you're a strongman competitor, you're not following Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding. If you're a Mr. Olympia competitor, you're not following me, right? Who's following me are basically average guys who are, working professionals, busy dads who are trying to lose the dad bod, lose the gut, get back in shape, and do so without feeling like a slave to the gym and enjoying the process. That's who I'm gearing it for. That's the whole lose your gut challenge and everything else. That's who I'm gearing this for. So you have to ask yourself, what's your main goal? What is your objective with working out in the first place? And do you have any injuries or mobility issues, right? And if not, then maybe we can certainly incorporate deadlifts as part of the workout. But if for some reason you have any injuries or mobility issues and you find that the deadlift is one that's just not comfortable or causes pain or discomfort, then you don't have to do it, right? You can do another exercise instead, as long as it's working the muscles. And that's one thing I always emphasize with my coaching students is, don't get hung up on an exercise. Like, a lot of people say, oh, you got to squat, or you got to bench, or you got to deadlift. I mean, if you like squats, benches, and deadlifts and they work for you, hey, by all means, let's do them. But if they cause any aches, pains, or discomfort, then you don't have to do them. Like, we can do another exercise to work the same muscle groups instead. Work the muscle. Don't get hung up on the exercise. That's what I always focus on. So if you want some help with this, and if you need any help with deadlifting, whether that's technique instruction or whatever, or some strategy, feel free to reach out to me. Right? Open up the video description of this and send me an email. I got my email address in there, and you can email me, or you can send me a message over on Facebook, and we can have a chat and brainstorm some ideas and see what will be the right action plan for you. We have Nathan joining in. He's saying, "What's up?" I'm doing good. All is good over here. We have Neil joining in. He says, "Good morning." So obviously you're over in the other side of the world. You must be Australia or somewhere along those neck of the woods, somewhere in the future. All right. He said, obviously, as you can tell by the window, it's dark here. It's nighttime. You're in the future. It says, "Good morning. I am already 31 years old and still want to continue lifting heavy. How will I make sure that I can still lift heavy enough in the long term? Maybe 50 years or 60 years, your thought." All right. You're already 31. Like, we always think we're old, right? Like 31, and then you got people who are in their 40s and 50s and 60s saying, "Hey, shit, I wish I was 30," right? Bottom line, you're never going to be as young as you are right now. So enjoy it, right? Live life to the fullest right now. But how can you continue to lift heavy as you get older? You have to respect your body. And this starts, it should start right from the beginning, but very often it doesn't start until you've experienced some injuries. And I'm guilty of this. When I was younger, I was guilty of using poor exercise form, training too heavy, trying to ego lift and swing and cheat and heave the weight up. And I thought that I was invincible because I never suffered any major injuries until I was 28 years old. That's when I suffered my first muscle tear, and I realized I wasn't invincible. But up until that point, I knew, okay, yeah, you should be careful and you shouldn't train too heavy and you should make sure that you warm up properly, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I'm young and I'm dumb, and it's not going to happen to me. Like, injuries are something that happens to somebody else, right? I always was naive until it did happen to me. And then I realized, okay, shit got real. I'm not invincible. And I learned to respect my body the hard way. Hopefully you don't have to go through that. Hopefully you don't have to go through injuries to learn this. But the simple answer is you need to listen to your body. And some simple strategies: make sure that you're warming up properly before each workout. And a proper warm-up would first off include some core warm-up. So I mean, like cardio to just elevate your core temperature. That's what I mean. So like if you're working out, especially if it's cold, you got to get your core temperature elevated. Get a light sweat going before you hit the weight room floor, right? So that's usually done through some cardio, whether it's, walking on the treadmill, using the elliptical, using the rower, the bike, whatever. Just get your core temperature elevated, your heart rate elevated, light sweat going, so that your blood flow is pumping and your body is physically warmed up. Then you want to go through some mobility exercises. And if you want to see a full list of a good pre-workout mobility routine, just do a search for Lee Hayward warm-up on YouTube, and you'll see some videos. I got a couple of videos there, but there's one in particular where I take you through a complete total body warm-up, starting from the neck and working our way down. And we just do some general mobility and warm-up exercises for all the major muscle groups and joints. And that'll take you a few minutes to do. And then when you get into your actual exercises, always start off with progressively heavy. Start off light and then do progressively heavier warm-up sets to build up to your top working weight. And as long as you do that and lift within your means, you should be pretty good. And don't get caught up in the whole ego lifting where you're trying to always lift heavier. Like, yes, you want to train in a progressive overload fashion, but do so smart. Like when the weight starts to feel light and you can lift heavier, then lift heavier, right? Don't always be like trying to slap on more weight. And I got caught up in this. Like every single week I was trying to add 5 pounds to the barbell. And yeah, that works initially. And especially when you're just getting started, you can probably do that. But it quickly adds up to the point where it's faster than your body can physically grow. And I was adding weight week after week after week. I was trying to get that progressive overload. And then in doing so, I would end up using poor form, swinging, heaving, jerking, using momentum to lift the weight. And it got to the point where, it was just too much. And that's when the injuries happen. So you got to be a bit more patient when it comes to the progressive overload, especially as you get more advanced and as your body gets older. So listen to your body. And when you're trying to increase the weights, increase them when you know that you can actually do it. All right. Don't always be trying to lift heavier and heavier all the time. It's okay if you keep the same weight for a few workouts in a row. There's nothing wrong with that. Focus on improving the quality of that lift. Maybe like doing it with better control, a slower tempo, getting a better mind-muscle connection. Like it doesn't always have to be just slapping more weight onto the barbell. And if you focus on the quality over the quantity, then you'll be able to continue lifting well into your later years and beyond. And like this is proven stuff. Like we got guys in our coaching program in the Muscle After 40 blueprint who are in their 70s and they're still training heavy, still making gains. So, I mean, this stuff applies, well into your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. Lee's joining in, says, I enjoyed doing the Lose Your Gut Challenge, learned a few new things along the way. Good stuff. Glad to have you joining in, Lee. And I mean, that's what it's all about. Like say, it's about, mastering the fundamentals and giving you, the base that you need to take this stuff, and achieve your own fitness and fat loss goals. So again, congrats to you for joining in with the challenge and participating. And I know you've done this a couple times. Like Lee's done the challenge a couple times already, and he's still learning new stuff, right? What else we got there? Motaz is saying the first video that I ever watched was let me have his drink of water. I've been on the phone for hours today. I did a live video that took 2 hours earlier today. Like I haven't shut up all day, so I'm getting tongue-tied. This video is probably going to be a shorter one than usual, but I'll answer these questions here. Motaz is saying the first video that I ever watched of you was the complete chest workout that you uploaded 11 years ago with Trish. I was 15 years old back then, and you're a legend, bro. God bless you. Well, thanks. I appreciate you for sharing that. And I know the one you're talking about. I remember that. That was shot at Global Gym on Elizabeth Avenue in St. John's. That gym is no longer Global Gym. It was bought out by another company right now. But I remember that video, and I appreciate the support. Glad that it had an impact and that you're still here tuning in now. Awesome. 11 years ago. Matrix Power Deluxe says, how much sodium per liter of water must bodybuilders take? It really, I personally don't even measure my sodium intake. This is something that you can kind of guesstimate. I mean, if you want to really break it down and break out the calculator and the nutrition apps and everything else and try and measure your sodium, I mean, you can if you want, but it's going to be tricky. Like, it's not that easy to measure sodium intake because it's not precise. Like, first off, nutrition labels are not precise, right? Even though we think they are, they're not. There's a lot of margin of error in nutrition labels. Even when it comes to calories, protein, carbs, and fat, nutrition labels can be off by 20% legally. Now, they may be off by actually more than that and getting away with it because there's not food police out there who are doing third-party analysis of, hey, does this food have the exact number of calories, protein, carbohydrates, and fats as what's listed on the nutrition label and everything else, sodium, potassium, blah, blah, blah. Like, legally, they're allowed to have a leeway of 20%. So they could be plus or minus 20% and still within their guidelines. Now, they could be way off that. They could be 50% off. They could be way the hell more off. Who knows? And just haven't gotten caught yet, right? Like, again, the way it is in the world these days, we've got bigger problems to worry about than, hey, does this food meet the nutrition label, right? With the whole pandemic and COVID situation and everything else, like, the government is probably got bigger priorities than does the food meet the nutrition labels. So to actually measure and monitor your sodium intake would be very tricky, right? I mean, you could try if you want, but how much you need, it's going to depend on so many variables. One, it's going to depend on your size. It's going to depend on how much you're sweating and, what kind of climate you're living in, your activity levels, your diet. Like, there's so many variables. This is how I recommend to simplify sodium, right? First off, add sodium to your diet in the form of just table salt and seasonings and condiments. Like, don't shy away from it. This is one of the big mistakes a lot of people make is they purposely try to avoid sodium. They always go for zero sodium options and they avoid adding any salt or seasoning to their food because they want to keep the sodium super low. Now, the problem with that is you need sodium. Your body needs it. It's an electrolyte. Your body cannot function without sodium. In fact, there's more dangers of consuming too little sodium than too much, right? If you consume too much sodium, it's not a big deal because as long as you're drinking enough water to flush it through and so your body can utilize what it needs and then flush out the rest, you're fine. But if you consume too little sodium, like if you were to purposely try and consume a zero sodium diet, like, you could literally die because sodium is an electrolyte. Your body needs it to function. All the metabolic processes in your body needs those electrolytes to function. And if you have zero sodium, your body cannot function. It would literally die if you didn't have enough sodium. So you need it. It's not just a nice to have or something. It's a must have. You must have it. So how I recommend it is purposely add sodium to your diet in the way of table salt and the condiments and all that stuff. Make sure that you're drinking enough water so that you utilize what you need. And then if you find that you're still cramping up or you're suffering the effects of low sodium, meaning you're not getting a good pump in the gym, your muscle cramps, weakness, dizziness, like all these are some side effects of not having enough sodium in your diet. If you experience any of that, especially the cramping, that's a sure telltale sign. Then I would purposely increase the sodium. And in my case, when I go to the gym, I take sodium packs with me, like those little salt packets that you can get like at the fast food joint, right? Those little tear open paper salt packets. I keep a bunch of those in a little Ziploc bag and keep them in my gym bag. When I go for bike rides, I always keep some salt packets with me. So, I mean, if I'm out there and I start to feel cramped up or I'm sweating excessively, I'll make sure to have one of those salt packets during my workout to keep my sodium and electrolyte levels topped up. Very often, I'll even sprinkle in some salt into my water bottle, sip it while I'm training. Make sure that I'm keeping those electrolytes there. Because again, as long as you're drinking enough water and you're sweating, your body will use what it needs, flush out the rest, whether it's flushing it out through your sweat, flushing it out through your urine. But you're not going to retain excess sodium once you get your body acclimatized to it, meaning that you're consuming a high sodium diet and you're drinking adequate water. It will use what it needs and flush out the excess. So that's how I handle it. I don't physically measure it. I play it by ear. And if I feel that I need more, then I purposely take in more. And when I know I need more is when it's really hot out and I'm sweating, or if I'm doing extra long workouts where I'm sweating more. That's when I'll purposely add more. But as far as measuring it, I honestly, I don't even, I don't break out the calculator and try and calculate how much sodium I'm consuming on a day-to-day basis. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, guys, moving on. We got Chris joining in. John is saying, on creatine, it says you need to drink 8 glasses of water. Is that right? You should be drinking a minimum 8 glasses of water, regardless if you're on creatine or not. Like 8 glasses of water is not a lot. Especially if you're physically active and you're working out and you're sweating. Like 8 glasses is like that. That's what they recommend for sedentary people, just to get by. I purposely drink more. Like I always got a bottle of water with me, and I'm sipping water throughout the day. I'll drink water when I'm working out, when I'm on bike rides. Like if I go anywhere in the car, I mean, I keep a case of water in my car all the time, so I always got water with me. I mean, I don't actually measure it, but my cue to know that I'm drinking enough water is when you go to the bathroom, you should be peeing clear or light yellow. That's what you should be shooting for. If your pee is dark yellow and it stinks, that's not a good sign, right? I always use that as my cue. First, I drink to satisfy my thirst, make sure that you don't get thirsty. But when you're going to the bathroom, that's your visual cue. Like, is your pee dark yellow? If it is, you need to drink more water. If it's clear or very light yellow, that's fine. That's acceptable, right? But if it's dark, that's your cue to drink more water. And that applies whether you're on creatine or not. But when you're taking creatine, I mean, that helps to pull water into the muscle cells. So, I mean, you're not going to get the maximum benefit from creatine if you're dehydrated, right? It doesn't make sense to be dehydrated and trying to supplement creatine at the same time. But that also applies to anything, because water is, your body is made of water, right? Most of your body tissues are primarily water. Muscle is 75% water. So, I mean, if you're not drinking enough water, you're hindering so many metabolic processes within your body. Muscle building, fat burning, just your overall health and metabolism, right? Everything requires water. So not just creatine. It's much bigger than that. What else we got there? Grimbuzz08. Do you highly recommend beetroot as a pre-workout? Not really. I mean, you could certainly take it. I mean, I sometimes will eat beets. Like I actually, instead of the beetroot supplement, I sometimes will have eat the beets, and I actually enjoy them. So I mean, like I'll get, whether I buy them at the farmer's market, the local beets, and cook them up myself, or sometimes I'll buy them already pre-cooked. Like at Costco, they sell packages of pre-cooked peeled beets, and it's super convenient, right? I mean, I get them. So, I mean, I'll chop up beets and add it to my salad and stuff like that. Beet is helpful because it helps to increase blood flow and circulation. Now, I mean, you can take the beetroot supplements, beetroot juice powders and all that stuff if you want. And it can help, work as kind of like a pre-workout, like a nitric oxide booster in that sense. I mean, it's optional. You can certainly have it, but it's not a must-have, right? So, I mean, if you don't like it or you don't want it, then, you're not missing out. You can still make gains without it. But if you do enjoy it, then it's certainly something that you can add to your routine. It would certainly help. One thing I will caution you on, though, if you start consuming beets or beetroot juice and stuff like that, it'll turn your pee pinkish red, right? And it may even turn your poop a bit, have a reddish hint to it as well, which can be startling at first, because, I mean, if you eat beets and drink beet juice and all that, and the next thing you know, you're peeing and your pee is red, you might think, what the hell, am I pissing blood? Like, what's on the go here? It's not. It's the beet. Like, beets are very, colorful, right? Like you get them on your hands. Like, I mean, they can stain everything. If you spill beet juice over your clothes, especially if you got a white t-shirt, I mean, it's going to stain, right? So beets are just very, very colorful, and that goes right through your systems, and it's going to come out in your pee and your poo. So don't be alarmed if you're eating beets and you got red pee and red poo. It's not a bad thing. It's just the beets. Neil saying, thank you much, Lee. Have yourself a great weekend. Glad you enjoy it. You're welcome, Neil. Do you think throwing around dumbbells in the gym is only for the bros, not for the ectomorphs? What? I don't think anybody should throw around dumbbells in the gym, regardless if you're a bro or an ectomorph. You pick them up and you put them down. You don't throw them. Lee, the head of the American Cardiology, recommends vegan diets for all aspects of health, including athletic performance. What's your opinion on that? No, I don't believe that vegan diets are the answer. I personally tried vegan diets myself several years back when the whole pro-vegan thing was really taking a storm on Netflix. My wife and I, we went vegan and gave it a try. Did it for 6 months, went full-on vegan, and I found that while I was eating pure plant-based diet, I was losing weight and I was not getting leaner. So I was actually losing lean muscle, and I found my strength and performance in the gym went down. I mean, I felt healthy in terms of I was eating more vegetables, and I learned a lot about my body. But the benefits of a vegan or vegetarian diet is not from the lack of meat, but from the abundance of vegetables. So personally, if you want my opinion on what I think is the ideal diet, 1/3 of your calories from quality protein, 1/3 of your calories from quality carbohydrates, 1/3 of your calories from healthy fats, and consume a balance of animal and plant-based protein. Get the best of both worlds. Like, eliminating meat isn't giving you a health edge. And in fact, there's so many nutrients, vitamins and minerals and quality protein and essential fatty acids that are found in animal proteins and animal foods that you cannot get through plant-based foods. So it's not helping, it's actually hindering you. It's just you want to eat the best of both worlds. What you want to avoid is the processed gunk, not the necessarily good quality animal foods. So I'm not a fan of a pure plant-based diet. If that offends anybody, I apologize. Should the average dad just trying to get in shape try incorporating bodybuilding, speed, power, and athleticism through plyometrics, Olympic lifting, or just focus on regular lifting and cardio? If you're just trying to get in shape, I would be very cautious about all that stuff unless you build up to it and get proper coaching. Because if someone who is not conditioned starts doing Olympic lifting, tries to figure it out on their own and doing plyometric work and certain athletic performance drills and all that, if you are not conditioned for those exercises, that's an injury waiting to happen. For the average person, your regular weight training at the gym, even using primarily machine exercises and cardio, is going to be more than enough to build up your base level of fitness. And that's what I would recommend starting with. Don't go trying to jump into Olympic lifting when you don't even have a base is just an injury waiting to happen. What else we got? Let's see. I'm going to clue it up shortly because I actually have to. My wife's got dinner on the table, and I'm going to clue this up. So I'm just skimming through our chat here to see. Someone's talking about a red pill movement. I don't even know what a red pill movement is, so I have no comments on that. I'll have to look it up after the chat. I don't know what the red pill movement is. Let's see what else. As an endomorph, how much harder is it to get shredded as opposed to other body types? That really depends. And I mean, if you are a true ectomorph, meaning you're naturally tall, skinny, and lean, and you're one of these people who just eats and you can't gain a pound to save your life, you're just naturally lean and skinny, then obviously it's going to be a lot easier to get shredded because you have so many things going for you in terms of getting shredded. Now, the problem with that side is that you're probably, if you do get shredded, you'll end up just rail thin and probably not happy with how you look because you don't have enough mass on your frame to fill it out. So, I mean, you'll just be super skinny, super lean, and look like a rack of ribs, right? It's not necessarily the ideal physique from a bodybuilding point of view, but that type of physique serves other points of view. Like you think of long distance endurance athletes, like marathon runners and elite cyclists, especially, long distance cyclists, like Tour de France cyclists or people like that. They are ectomorphs, right? They are naturally lean physiques, and that type of physique serves them in that sport. Now, when it comes to bodybuilding, it's not the ideal physique. You want to have some sort of mesomorph base, so that you can fill out your frame with solid muscular mass. Now, as far as how much harder is it to get shredded, If you are naturally overweight and you were overweight as a kid, you've carried a lot of weight your whole life, and you're going to have to work at it. Like, it's because you've got those fat cells on your body, right? And it's harder to lose it. If you've never been fat before, then it's so much easier to get shredded because you don't have those fat cells on your body. And I mean, if you take like an average endomorph, or sort, I'm getting these mixed up, an ectomorph, the tall, skinny guy, I mean, he could probably lose 10 pounds and be shredded. Whereas if you take, you know, a 300-pound endomorph who's been fat his whole life, he loses 10 pounds and he's not going to look any different. He's just going to be 10 pounds smaller, but he's still going to have a lot of layers of body fat. So obviously, it's just a lot more work for someone who's overweight to get shredded. Now, can it be done? Yes, but it's going to take a lot longer, right? It's going to take a lot longer. And chances are you're going to have to lose a lot more weight than you think. I mean, prime example, like I mentioned at the beginning of this chat, one of the guys who went through the Lose Your Gut Challenge last year, Steve Patterson, he started off, he was 260 pounds, 5'7". He lost over 100 pounds. Now he has visible abdominal definition, but he had to lose 100 pounds to get it. So it's a lot of work. It took him a full year of consistency with training, nutrition, lifestyle choices, I mean, to make that happen. It's not something that he just did in like a 30-day shred or a 6-week cut or something like that. I mean, it took him a full year. And even then, he was committed. Like, I mean, it wasn't like this on and off again BS that so many people talk about. Like, oh, I went on a diet for a few weeks and then I got off track and I joined the gym for a month and then I quit and now I'm on and off, on and off. No, he went in, burnt the bridges behind him and just focused on making this a lifestyle change. It wasn't on and off again. He committed to the process and he got the results. But again, it's a lot of work, right? You know, it took him a full year. All right, moving on. What else we got there? Lee, do you only recommend WPI? I've heard WPC is junk. Whey Protein Isolate versus Whey Protein Concentrate. I'm assuming that. The protein itself, regardless if it's a Whey Protein Isolate or a Whey Protein Concentrate, it's the same whey protein. The only difference is the concentrate has a bit more fat and lactose along with the protein. That's it. So in 100 grams of Whey Protein Isolate, it has the fat and lactose removed. So it's about 90% protein by weight. So 100 grams of protein has 90 grams of, 100 grams of powder has 90 grams of protein because it's isolated. Whey Protein Concentrate has about 70 grams of 70% protein by weight. I'm getting my numbers confused. It's time for me to shut up. Concentrate is 70% protein. So 100 grams of powder has 70 grams of protein. Now, the actual protein is the same. It's the same protein regardless. So, I mean, it's not junk. It just means there's a little bit more fat and lactose along with the protein. Now, that's not going to hinder it from a muscle building point of view. But if you're trying to maximize the quality of the calories and minimize fat and lactose, which for those of you who don't know, lactose is just a fancy way of saying milk sugar. That's all it is. If you want to minimize the fat and the sugar that you get, then go with an isolate. The only drawback is isolates tend to be more expensive. Concentrates tend to be less expensive. And then you can get a blend, which is basically a 50-50 mix of both. So I would usually recommend either a Whey Protein Isolate or a Whey Protein blend for most people. But if you're on a budget and you want to use a Whey Protein Concentrate, the protein itself is just as good. The only drawback is sometimes they are a bit harder on the stomach because of the lactose in it. It may cause a bit of gas and bloating, especially if you're lactose sensitive. But the protein itself is the same quality. It's no different. What's your take on... Just a second. The chat just jumped in. I lost my spot. Where was I? What's your take on a full body push-pull routine, push-pull days with that leg work on the appropriate days? I think it's great. I'm a big fan of push-pull legs. You know, if you want to do that, that's totally fine. I've done multiple push-pull leg routines. I've got videos up on YouTube showing push-pull legs. It's certainly a great split to follow. What else we got there? Is Hammer Strength your favorite brand of lifting equipment and machines? I find they're better than most other brands, especially the leg press. I love Hammer Strength. The gym that I train at now doesn't have any Hammer Strength machines, so I'm not using a Hammer Strength. I'm using, you know, what we have available at the local gym. But the gym that I trained at before, had a full line of hammer strength machines, and I did really enjoy them. They're solid quality machines. And I know what you mean. The hammer strength leg press, the hammer strength hack squat, those are some of the better leg press and hack squat machines that I've used. So it's definitely a quality machine. If you have access to them, by all means, use them. Do you train abs on separate days, or do you incorporate, or do you recommend skipping it as you train core indirectly through squat and bench and deadlifts? You still need to do isolated ab work. Like just trying to get ab training from squatting and benching and deadlifting. I mean, yes, indirectly your abs are coming into play whenever you do any exercise, because the abs are basically stabilizers for your core. But if you want to maximize your abdominal development, you need to actually train them. You can't rely on the secondary benefits that they get. I mean, I would recommend at the minimum doing core exercises such as planks and even core exercises for the other side. So like planks and leg raises are phenomenal for the frontal abdominal wall. Hyperextensions are great for the lower back and the spinal erectors. I mean, I personally recommend doing some isolated ab work. And generally speaking, I like to do it at the end of a workout. So it's not going to have any negative impact on your exercises. Like if you started with abs first and you pre-exhausted your abs and then you went and tried to do squats and deadlifts and other exercises, the fact that you've pre-exhausted your abs, it may actually take away some of the strength and stability you have for your squats and your deadlifts. Whereas if you did the squats and deadlifts first and then did the abs after, it wouldn't have any negative impact because you'd get those core exercises done, meaning that the squat and the deadlifts done while your core is still strong. And then you could finish it off after with some isolation work, and it wouldn't have any negative impact on those exercises. All right. Any tips to minimize loose skin after weight loss? And that's the question I'm going to clue up the video chat with, because we're coming close to the hour here now. I actually made a video talking about loose skin after weight loss. So if you haven't seen that already, just go on YouTube after this video is done, type in a search for Lee Hayward loose skin after weight loss, and it should pop up there in the search results on YouTube. But the bottom line, if you have a lot of weight to lose, you're probably going to have some loose skin, especially if you are older, right? The older you get, the less elasticity you have in your skin. And this is just, it happens to everybody. It's not unique to you or anything like that. Everybody is. So the older you get, you lose collagen, you lose that natural elasticity in your skin. But in order to minimize it, well, first off, what you want to do is you want to lose the weight. Like, do not prevent yourself or procrastinate losing weight because you're afraid of loose skin. Like that, I get a kick out of that. Like a lot of people who are overweight, like sometimes obese overweight, saying, well, I don't want to lose weight because I'm afraid I'll have loose skin. And I say, well, like you're like you look like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man right now. I mean, staying fat isn't going to help you. It's certainly not going to help your health, and it's not going to help your skin, because guess what? That's fat is going to sag as well, and eventually you'll be fat and loose skin. So I'd rather be lean and have a bit of loose skin than fat and have loose skin. Like, so don't procrastinate losing fat for the fear of loose skin. I mean, that's just stupid. Like, get the fat off your body, because there's nothing healthy about being overweight and obese. It's going to just contribute to heart disease, diabetes, cholesterol, stress, you name it. There's no benefits to being fat, right? Get the fat off you, for God's sakes. Don't stay fat because you want to keep your skin all full of fat and not have it sag. I mean, no, gravity's going to take its toll one way or the other, right? So lose the weight first and then keep it off, because when you keep it off, your skin will over time start to tighten up. Now, depending on how much you lose, if you lose a lot of weight, like 100+ pounds, there may be some loose skin there. Now, if you keep it off, it may naturally tighten up on its own, depending on how much elasticity you have left in your skin, right? It may tighten up. In some cases, it may not. I mean, and it may require surgery to remove it. Like if you have a lot of skin, like in extreme cases, like I've seen people lose like say like 200 pounds or more, and they have like literally flaps of skin, like because they were so massively overweight, and then they lost 200+ pounds, and now they have these flaps of skin. Like, that's not going away, right? The only way to remove that is surgically remove it and get the tummy tuck and all that stuff. But if you've lost 100 pounds or less, chances are it will naturally tighten up on its own to the point where it's not a big issue, right? Like in Steve Patterson's case, I always like to use Steve because he's one of my most recent success stories, right? And he lost 100 pounds in a year. which is a phenomenal achievement. I mean, you look at his before and after pictures, you can see some loose skin, but it's not crazy. Like it's not to the point where like, oh my God, that's so gross and disgusting. Like he looks 100 times better being lean with visible abdominal definition than he did with big old belly roll hanging over his belt. Right. So, I mean, like, yes, you can see there is a little bit of loose skin there, but he's so much leaner, healthier, and looks and feels so much better. So, I mean, it will naturally tighten up a bit on its own, but there may be that little bit of slack skin. And even in my own case, like, I mean, check out that video I posted. I've got some loose skin, but it's not to the point where it's hinders me. I mean, it's not to the point where it's such an eyesore that it detracts from, you know, my physique. I mean, I'm still able to compete on the bodybuilding stage, you know, in a pair of freaking posing trunks in front of an auditorium of spectators and a panel of judges and hold my own. Now, granted, certain poses, there was a little bit of loose skin, you know, right around that lower ab area, but it wasn't terrible. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? I mean, as people get older, their skin starts to sag, right? I mean, as people get older, their hair starts to turn gray, right? Shit happens, right? That's age. That's father time catching up with you. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. But as long as you lose the fat and keep it off, then that's your best line of defense right there. And again, if it is extreme, then, you know, you can look into talking to your doctors and see what options you have as far as, you know, surgically removing it. But I wouldn't recommend trying to go for all these skin cream solutions like you see in the cosmetic aisle. Like, hey, take this magical skin tightening serum cream. Most of that's snake oil and have minuscule benefits at best, right? Like it's basically a money maker, you know, to try and sell cosmetics and stuff. Middle-aged women who want to try and look like they're in their 20s again. And they're a great audience to sell that stuff to, but it's not really going to make jack shit difference in the greater scheme of things, especially if you're talking about maximizing, you know, loose skin after weight loss. So hopefully that helps give you some insights anyway. All right, guys, I got to clue it up. We've been going for an hour and that's long enough for me. So hopefully you enjoyed the video chat. If you do have any questions about anything that we discussed during today's chat, or if you want to reach out to me with specific questions about your own health and fitness goals, feel free to do so. You can send me an email. My personal email address is leeh@leehayward.com. You can message me through Facebook. If you haven't already done so, friend me up over there. I'm quite active on Facebook. That's my main social media platform of choice. So you can hit me up over there. And in the meantime, hopefully you have yourself a good weekend, and I will chat to you next Friday, same time, same place. Have yourself a good one. Take care. Over and out.